Hey everybody, recently I went on a trip to Mexico City and I took the Fuji X H2S with 2 lenses and the iPhone 14 Pro. Now, something happened on that trip that challenged what I believed about photography. And the big question is, can the iPhone be my main camera when I'm traveling? Let's jump into it. The first full day in Mexico City, it was supposed to be rainy and we were going out of town to see the pyramids at Teotihuacan. And that gave me pause. So I was left with a bold choice. Leave the Fuji in the hotel. I had maybe a little bit of a fear of it getting stolen or trying to keep my eye on it or juggling another bag while we're hopping in and out of Ubers and navigating travel. On the other hand, the iPhone had unexpected capabilities that really made me see its true potential. So whether you're a hobbyist, an amateur, semi-pro, or professional, we always love to have the best equipment around us, and we love to have options and which lenses. I took the 23mm f2, which is one of my favorites. It's small, it's light, it's pretty affordable, and it takes great pictures, I think. I've heard other people say they don't think it has enough character. And I took the 18-55, which is a great kit lens, a zoom lens. We're gonna break this down into 3 acts. First, the pyramids, second, Xochimilco, and third, the museums and beyond. So our first stop was the pyramids of Teotihuacan. It was rainy and it was overcast, and we ventured into these underground Aztec, I think pre-Aztec caves. So there's the Pyramid of the Sun and the Moon, and the Aztecs found these abandoned. They didn't build them, which I didn't know before we went. But out in the countryside beyond the pyramids, there was the caves where the poorer people lived, and the royalty lived at the pyramids. And so we took this tour that took us on an ATV into this sort of backcountry. We went down to these caves. It was dark and low visibility, and there was a glaring light coming through these breaks in the mouths of the caves, or even sometimes in the ceiling of the cave would be a hole that would let light in. But the iPhone really held its own. I had decided to leave the Fuji just out of fear, and I was left to capture these moments with the iPhone. And what I found is one of my go-to tricks that made this work for me was that I used the RichieCam app. And the RichieCam app has some filters in there that emulate certain Fuji film recipes. But one of the things I like about it is that it sort of desaturates the photo, makes it look oddly a little flatter, which to me looks a little richer. The HDR software in the iPhone kind of over cranks and oversaturates the photo. So I don't get a real warm, fuzzy feeling when I look at an iPhone photo. Like, it's a very clinical, not to say cartoonish, but a little bit outlandish rendition of how I remember the scene. And the RichieCam app gives you some filters that I experimented with, but quickly on I decided I was going to use one, analog gold. And I used analog gold everywhere we went. Primarily, you're going to see that in these shots that we're sharing with you today. So in 4 key areas, I'm going to share how the iPhone performed. Image quality. Now, while there were some tricky situations with the lighting in the caves, like I mentioned, the iPhone was able to capture high quality images. And we're going to talk about the test that I use at the end of the video, so stick around for that. 2, flexibility. The iPhone could easily be adapted to shoot at low angles, high angles, zoom in. I had no problem. Anything I wanted to take a photo of, it's like I had all these lenses at my disposal. Unlike the XH2S, I would have had the 23mm and the 18-55 only. And if I wanted to switch, I would have to, take it off, expose the sensor to possibly dust and dirt in the elements, and then put that back on. So the iPhone was very, very flexible, quick, and convenient. So the convenience is the third part. It was portable. It was always in my pocket. I never had to think, where was it? Reach this side or that side for my bag. I didn't have the extra weight of the bag. It was very portable and convenient. All right, so here's another trick. The Apple Watch. The Apple Watch can be used with your iPhone to trigger photos. All you gotta do is make sure you have the camera app installed on your watch, You set your iPhone to self-timer mode, you actually get a preview on the screen, and you can tap the screen and trigger the photo. Let's say you're in a place where there's no one else around and you want a selfie or a posed picture. You can lean your phone up against something and then put in self-timer mode and then trigger the actual photo from your watch. Pretty cool trick. All right, so let's now talk about the image quality. So the iPhone 14 Pro's 48 megapixel sensor is impressive, and then shooting in RAW gives you that ability to adjust those images. So that's great. You have that flexibility if you want to get a certain look with a Lightroom preset or something like that. And so I really find that it's substantial. Now those 48 megapixels are not the same as a Fuji 26 megapixel sensor. So that's where you have to decide what is the purpose of these photos, where are they going to go? Do I need the high quality Fuji pixels, or will the iPhone do? So when I compare the shots to the Fuji, honestly, of course the Fuji still wins, but really, can I get by? I can more than get by, I think, with the iPhone as my travel camera. I'm going to say it was more than enough. Now, a little word about workflow. So the iPhone, the photos go to that Photos app, but then what I do is when I get to Wi-Fi, like when we got home, I transfer everything into the Amazon Photos, because as a Prime member, I have a free unlimited, well, I guess free, I'm paying for it as a Prime member, but I have unlimited storage of full-size images and videos. So I put those in there, and then I delete everything out of my Photos app on my iPhone to reduce the storage, to free up space for other apps and other uses. But that's just my workflow. It works for me, and I keep a few favorites that I might use for wallpapers, or pictures that are kind of like a little sentimental photo album of my wife and maybe our dogs, my Jeep, things like that. But basically I offload the storage to Amazon Photos app, then I wipe that off my iPhone. As a matter of fact, every 6 months or so, I usually just do a factory reset on whatever phone I use, and that is just the one way I keep it running fast, and I'm happier with its performance. Question: have you ever used your smartphone as your primary travel camera? Let me know in the comments. Okay, next up was Xochimilco. We went the very next day. The boats, the ancient canals, we were going to spend time there. And I chose deliberately that day, before I was kind of making the decision out of fear. I was afraid to bring my Fuji out in the rain. But the next day I said, I'm interested to see if this iPhone can be my travel camera. So we went out on the water. It was very cool. People serenading, lots of vendors. You could buy food, you could buy drinks out there. We got serenaded by mariachis, and it's quite something. Now, one of the ways that this iPhone shone is easily switching into video mode, shooting photos. The videos were easily captured in vertical mode, easily shared to social media. If you want people to know what you're doing on your trip, it's very easy to do. And that's one of the conveniences of using the iPhone for travel photography, is ease of sharing. But there's another trick that I want to let you know about the Richie Cam app. Is there's a hidden 40 megapixel mode. So if you toggle that on in the settings, I'll show you how to do that. So if you toggle that on, you get these beefy 48 megapixel images. The other thing is you can turn on in Richie Cam app, I want to have a JPEG and I want to have a RAW file, so that you can go back and edit that RAW file to your heart's content. Essentially, you're getting that basic iPhone stock photo there, and the Richie Cam JPEG. So it's like two wins in one. The convenience of the iPhone that day was unbeatable. We were hopping in and out of boats, hopping in and out of Ubers, and it's lightweight, it fits in my pocket, and I didn't have to think twice about it. Now, this is the important thing about being in the moment, is I didn't have to think twice about my camera. It was always there because it was, my Uber app was on there, my maps were on there, our reservations, our tickets, my email, everything's there. I'm gonna have it with me, and it's gonna be by my side. If I bring the Fuji, then it's something else I have to think about that is not about travel, not about getting around, and it's something to pull me out of the moment. So that's one of the reasons that I find the iPhone camera was so convenient, is it kept me in the moment. So while I've been loving the Richie Cam app for travel photography, What's your favorite camera app? Leave a comment below and let me know. Now, I intentionally chose a filter. I said I kept a consistent filter in the Richicam app for all my shots, except for a couple of times, I think at the Archaeology Museum, I switched into analog film, but I chose analog gold because it had this kind of warmth to it that I wanted to use for all these photos, because it reminded me of the warmth of the people, the vibrancy of the city. The streets were clean, it was so safe, it was amazing, and I thought the analog gold just captured that sense of joy and vibrancy. I think it gave it a warm vintage look that really brought out the essence of Mexico City. Now the question is, ultimately, can the iPhone really replace the Fuji camera as a travel camera? For me, my answer is yes. Maybe for you it's something else. I've found that it's convenient, the images are high quality, and here's my test. This is what I do. I say to myself, am I able to print an 8x10 to put up in my house somewhere? Okay, I'm on a vacation. Is my camera good enough for that? That I have a memory, I want to print it. It's not going to be bigger than that, but that's my first test. And then my second test is, can I get a good enough picture to capture the emotion and the joy of the moment in an artistic way to my satisfaction as a photographer? And most time in my travel experiences, I find that I want a broader, more wide angle photo than a detailed shot or something zoomed in. And so most of the time, the iPhone works great for that. You know, I don't really need to produce like the subject and a blurry depth of field, because then that blurs the context of what I'm seeing around that object. So usually when I'm traveling, I want something, maybe even a panorama, I want something wide, and the iPhone performs well. So you can get your images with the Richicam filters or recipes, whatever you want to call them, in 48 megapixel mode, and that's going to be way enough to print 8x10 for your house. So as good a photographer as you are, I think this could be a solution for you when you're on the go. I've shown you that you can use the iPhone's RAW capture capability, and that's one way you can edit photos later for a more powerful editing experience. Post-processing, what's your favorite feature on the smartphone with the camera when it comes to taking great pictures on the go when you're traveling? Ultimately, I want to ask, would you trade your professional grade camera for a smartphone? I have. I really did that on the Mexico City trip. It started out with me being fearful to take my camera out. I thought the rain would be a problem. I didn't want to have too many things to juggle. And the next day I chose that option. And by the third day, I was committed. This was the best way to go for me. I'm sold. Now, it doesn't mean I won't take my Fuji or whatever professional grade camera I have with me on other trips. But you know what? The mold has already been set, and I think I'll be happy just to take the phone out with me. I want you to watch this video up here about how I switched to Fuji from Canon, and I have a special announcement coming up soon. This is my first iPhone video, and I'm gonna have a new video coming soon about upgrading from the iPhone 14 to the iPhone 16 Pro, and whether it's worth it for a photographer or videographer. Coming soon. See what's next.